Have you ever realized how much stress comes from always needing to be in control? Not just over your work or calendar, but over your mind, your future, even who you think you are, but your identity, your purpose. Here's something we rarely say out loud. Maybe it's our obsession with certainty that's making us anxious. Maybe you're simply exhausted, tired of planning everything, only to watch it fall apart anyway. That deep urge to have everything figured out, your direction. We've been taught to treat life like a puzzle, as if there's only one correct solution. Maybe you live with that constant tension where the unknown feels like a threat you have to defeat. Centuries ago, a French writer named Michel de Montaigne saw this with rare clarity, and it disappears faster. This fight is costing you. He examined his doubts, his fears, his confusion, and wrote about them without pretending to solve them. Not like a man with the answers, but like someone learning how to live with questions. But what if the unknown isn't your real enemy? What if the real fear is your refusal to allow uncertainty to exist? But here's the secret. That ease doesn't come from fixing everything out there. With three small words, I don't know, and the calm realization, that's perfectly okay. He didn't see the world as a machine that could be neatly explained. While others chased strict beliefs and tight systems, he turned his gaze inward. In silence, surrounded by books, turning inward. Because for him, admitting what we don't know isn't weakness. It's the beginning of freedom. It's the moment we drop the performance, our flaws. Maybe in today's world, humility often gets pushed aside. That's what he left behind weren't conclusions, but reflections, like mirrors. What you sow if you worn out from pretending to be confident and unshakable. But Montaigne doesn't just invite us to welcome doubt. He also warns us about what happens when we try to run from it. Because the more we fight for control, the more life seems to slip away. Like water you try to hold, tighten your grip, and whether you see it or not, this constant need to manage everything isn't just tiring. It's damaging. It keeps you stuck in a loop of fear and pressure. It turns your mind into a guard tower, scanning for anything that might go wrong. Maybe it's not direction you missing. Maybe it's freedom. While others looked for final answers, Montaigne welcomed the discomfort of not knowing. Need to hear right now, that being unsure, not to seem clever, but to begin a real search. Doesn't make Montaigne gave himself room to grow. He changed his perspective, willingly and often. You broken. That not having all the answers doesn't mean you're failing at life. Doubts and contradictions weren't errors to correct. They were proof that we were truly alive. He embraced it, with curiosity, grace, and even laughter. He saw that life isn't about locking down the truth with rigid beliefs. When we stop pretending we've got it all together, when we set down the burden of always needing to be right or certain or strong, we're expected to speak with confidence, fast opinions, hard stances, no space for doubt. And he chose to explore the most uncertain, fragile thing he knew, himself. And maybe that's what you need right now, not more certainty, but a better way to live with the uncertain. This video explores that quiet, braver way of being. And it begins right here, right now, with the simple choice to let go of the illusion of control. He never forced yesterday's beliefs to survive in today's world. He knew that the mind was made to evolve, to stretch, shift, and change shape. The more he saw that uncertainty isn't failure. It's a deeper, more grounded form of wisdom. Through Montaigne's lens, I want to show you how life begins to change when you stop resisting the unknown. Anxiety loosens its grip. The pressure softens. And life, finally, starts to feel a little lighter. It comes from inside, a quiet shift in how you relate to what you can't control. To move forward, not into certainty, but into something more honest and open. So I ask you, are you ready for that? Because this journey doesn't begin with answers. It begins with surrender. Montaigne wasn't the type of philosopher who gave speeches or built big theories. He spent his days alone. He didn't write to convince you, but to invite you, to pause, to question, to look honestly at yourself. Not without fear, but with the courage to face that fear directly. And the older he got, he kept asking himself, what do I really know? But Montaigne points us toward another way, one that puts our shared humanity before our fixed ideas. To Montaigne, and that it's completely okay to be a work in progress. And rather than resist that, it's about walking through it with openness and attention. And that's exactly why Montaigne still speaks to us today. In a noisy world full of opinions, he reminds us to listen. In a world obsessed with being certain, he reminds us that doubt can be a doorway. The freedom to change. The freedom to not know. The freedom to simply exist. Isn't that what you're doing? Trying to control everything? Your future, what others think, how successful you are, how your body feels, even your thoughts. You reach for control, but life keeps slipping through your hands. And there's a name for that state: anxiety. At its core, anxiety is a fear of uncertainty. It's a hunger for safety in a world that promises none. Most people live trapped in that space, always alert, always bracing for impact, as if enough vigilance could protect them from life's deeper storms. But Montaigne saw something long before science confirmed it: that the more you chase the future, the more you disconnect from the now. It's the refusal to move with the natural flow of things. Our pain doesn't just come from what happens to us. It comes from our refusal to accept what's happening. It's that constant struggle to force life into something it's not. Montaigne faced all of this with raw, honest awareness. He didn't bury his pain or cover up his uncertainty. He welcomed them as parts of the human experience. And the more disappointment you carry, the tighter you try to control. It becomes a cycle, a trap. And what does it leave you with? A stiff body, a foggy mind, a restless spirit. Montaigne showed us there's another direction. A meaningful life isn't built by mastering every detail. It's shaped by learning how to live alongside what refuses to be mastered. But how do you do that? And that true strength comes not from domination, but from adaptation. His brilliance didn't come from creating grand philosophies. It came from his courage to explore his own inner world. He used his life as the subject and the mirror. He didn't want to shape minds. He wanted to help release them. And in his vulnerability, his doubts, instincts, contradictions, and failures, Montaigne teaches something radical. You don't need to be right all the time. It's about meeting yourself with honesty and compassion. It's noticing the times when you're pretending to be sure, when you act like you know, but deep down, you're just guessing. In simpler terms, whatever you feel inside, even the strange or uncomfortable parts, is part of being human. When you force yourself to keep wearing a mask that no longer feels true, and in doing that, he stopped exhausting himself by fighting reality. Have you ever noticed how the people who try hardest to control everything often seem the most worn out, the most tense, the least at ease? They can't slow down because they believe if they stop managing every detail, everything will fall apart. While the outside world demanded conclusions, Montaigne turned inward and paid attention. And what he found wasn't neat, it was messy. But that mindset doesn't create peace. It builds a prison. We shift, we stumble, and that's not weakness, it's what makes us real. Montaigne offered another way, a conscious release. Not surrender and defeat, but brave acceptance that life doesn't bend to our every desire. And until you learn to move with it, you'll keep suffering. Modern culture doesn't help, especially in corporate systems that worship control and predictability. Here's the tough truth. The harder you try to control, the more let down you'll feel. How do you stand calmly in a life that constantly shifts? The answer lives in Montaigne's practice, turning inward, not to dissect yourself like a problem, but to quietly listen to what your soul is trying to say. Clashing thoughts, fears, confusing desires, sudden urges. Montaigne didn't. He met them face to face, not to condemn, but to understand. Most people hide these parts of themselves. His writing wasn't about preaching, it was about revealing. He thought out loud, so others could feel free to think for themselves. You just need to stay honest with yourself. This practice of observing yourself, without filters or performances, is a rare, powerful way to discover who you really are. But move gently. Looking inward isn't about tearing yourself down. Montaigne used writing to break free from those inner traps. He once said, "I am human, and nothing human is foreign to me." And the beauty of that, it loosens the grip of shame. Montaigne reminds us, we're not made of marble. We're soft. But let's be clear, acceptance isn't giving up. Because when you look at yourself clearly, you begin to see how much of your pain comes from chasing perfection, from trying to fit into some impossible version of who you think you're supposed to be. The peace we search for begins when we stop fighting who we are. It's actually the most powerful step forward, because nothing truly changes until it's first accepted. You change. People change. Life keeps moving. You can't walk into healing while still rejecting your wounds. But there's another layer we often overlook. Even when you accept yourself, one truth still stands. Everything changes. But Montaigne saw straight through all that. He knew that life is made of movement. Your thoughts will evolve. Your body will shift. Relationships will come and go. Desires will rise and fall. Nothing is fixed. Nothing is promised. Nothing stays. And when we act like life should hold still, when we expect it to stay the same, we invite disappointment. Montaigne didn't resist it. He flowed with it. He understood that being inconsistent is often a sign you're growing. Constancy is the virtue of mechanical minds, he once said, with a quiet defiance. That changing your mind takes more courage than defending your old one. It was about learning to move with the rhythms of life. Now ask yourself this. How many of your fears are just fears of change? Fear of losing someone. Because trying to freeze life is the quickest path to pain. Change isn't a problem in the design. The peace so many are chasing doesn't come from control. He didn't write to sound wise. He wrote to stay alive, to face things like the fear of death, the weight of sorrow, the sting of doubt, the slow changes of the aging body, the instability of the mind. And maybe his greatest gift was this, the understanding that reflection isn't just thinking, it's survival. The most harmful beliefs are usually the ones we never stop to examine. Third, let impermanence guide the way, to feel more rooted in his own mind. Second, make self-reflection a habit. Right. It doesn't matter if it's a private journal, a rough note, or a page no one else will see. That turning inward is a way to suffer less and live more honestly. But how do you actually stay present with the unknown? It's not something you accept once and forget. It's a daily practice, a gradual rewiring of how your mind responds to uncertainty. Not the kind of harsh discipline we usually imagine, but the gentle kind that grows from valuing your own inner freedom. And that requires real dedication, because living with uncertainty is a lifelong art. So here are a few ideas from Montaigne that might change how you move through life. It comes from flexibility, the ability to release, to reset, to begin again. Montaigne grasped this long before it became a modern idea. And maybe, just maybe, you're starting to sense it too. It's a defense against the discomfort of not having control. Montaigne practiced this daily. Change is the design. It's the very nature of life. And the more we resist it, the more tense, confused, and disconnected we become. But what if, like Montaigne, you stopped resisting those changes? It's in your ability to adapt, to move, to begin again. Don't hold too tightly to what's meant to pass. What if you stopped treating every shift as a threat and started seeing it as part of your becoming? Accepting change doesn't mean giving up. That letting go of a belief, even for something uncertain, can lead to real clarity. To him, a good life wasn't about being stuck in one version of yourself. Fear of losing your role, your image, your path. Fear of things falling apart. It means stopping the fight against reality. It means learning to move with life's current instead of trying to hold it still. But knowing that change is part of life, that's only the beginning. We still have to learn how to live inside that change. How to stay steady when everything else feels shaky. How to feel whole, even when surrounded by uncertainty and confusion. This is where thought must become practice. And Montaigne offers us something solid, a way of thinking, daily habits that make peace with the unknown. Because philosophy isn't meant to float above life. It's meant to land right in the middle of it. Montaigne lived by that. First, challenge the things you're most certain about. When something feels unquestionable, pause. Lean in. Ask yourself what's behind it. Because certainty often masks fear. He examined even his most trusted thoughts, not because he lacked conviction, but because he knew how dangerous it is to never question yourself. To reshape. To rise after resetting. Writing helps untangle what's inside. Montaigne wrote constantly, not to impress, but to understand. To make peace with his own confusion. Make your plans, yes. But be ready to loosen your grip when life shifts direction. Because it will. Real strength isn't in rigidity. Learn to bend. Montaigne once wrote, "The wisest person is the one who moves with a moving world." Fourth, learn to laugh at your own chaos. Seriously laugh. Montaigne never took himself too seriously. That's part of what made his wisdom feel so human. He joked about his fears, questioned his ego, and softened his pride with humor. Laughter kept him honest. It reminded him that being imperfect doesn't mean being unworthy. It means you're real. Last, make room for silence. The real kind. No distractions. No noise. Just you. Montaigne found solitude to be one of his most powerful teachers, not as a retreat from life, but as a return to himself. In that stillness, your true thoughts begin to surface. It becomes space. Space for growth, for insight, for peace. But beneath all these ideas lies one simple, deeper thread: freedom. The freedom to be who you are, even when things don't make sense. He wanted us to move with it, like a dance. In the quiet, your mind remembers its natural rhythm. And there, without pressure or noise, the unknown stops feeling like a threat. The freedom to live lightly, even when life feels heavy. The freedom to belong to yourself, without needing permission. And this is where the journey leads. To a softer, more grounded kind of freedom. Because Montaigne didn't just want us to survive life's unpredictability. Freedom to choose, without being paralyzed by the idea of one perfect path. Not in flawless routines, or in a version of life where everything goes to plan. It lives in this moment. Life doesn't need you to be perfect. It just wants you to be here, right now. All those things you've been trying so hard to manage, not the kind built on control, but the kind that rises gently from within. Montaigne taught us, the more we accept how little we truly know, the more fully we become ourselves, and the more free we become. If you're still watching, if something here stirred something deep, share that with me in the comments. And if this journey spoke to something inside you, know that we're only just getting started. So subscribe, tap the bell, stay on the path you've already started. From trying to hold still what was always meant to move. But once you stop resisting the unknown, something inside begins to soften. Not the world, but your heart. They were never really in your control. Life was never meant to follow perfect plans or stay within clean lines. People will disappoint you. Plans will shift. Feelings will change. And none of that means you've failed. He understood that pain doesn't come from change itself, but from our refusal to let change happen. It just means life is doing what it does, moving. Montaigne saw that clearly. Freedom to feel without judging what you feel. Your grip eases. Your fear settles. And suddenly, you're flowing with life, not fighting against it. This isn't defeat. It's maturity. It's wisdom. It's freedom. Freedom to live without needing every answer. Ready to stop holding everything so tightly. Ready to soften. The peace we're chasing? It's not waiting in some perfect future. In the space where you stop pretending to know it all. Where you breathe and say with quiet strength, I'm not sure, and that's okay. Because that's where true peace begins. What do you feel when you imagine a future without clear answers? It's because some part of you is ready. Ready to live with more honesty and less fear. So ask yourself this. What part of you is still afraid of not knowing? Let me know how this reflection landed for you. I read every one. And you might be surprised how many others feel exactly the same way. That connection matters more than you think. The next video takes this even further, deeper into the space where real transformation begins. Because this moment right here, this is the beginning. Now all that's left is to keep walking. This journey is yours.